My wife said it was just dinner with her ex. Then I found out how deep her lies really went. Just dinner, and the first crack. After cheating, my wife said it was only dinner with her ex, and I'm just jealous and stupid. Those were her exact words. Calm voice, raised brow, like she was grading my maturity. I'm Mark, 35. My wife is Rachel, 32. We've been married 5 years, mortgaged together, a cat named Pixel, 1,000 inside jokes I thought were real. We're that couple in photos, matching beanies, coffee cups, city sunsets. The kind of pretty life you post and never audit. The first signs were small enough to excuse. She started guarding her phone like it was a rare museum piece. She changed her passcode for work security, took calls in the hallway, laughed softly at messages and said, "Laura from the office, she's a mess." She began sleeping facing the window, shoulders tight under the blanket. When I offered a back rub, she said she was touched out. When I suggested a date night, she said we should save money. When I made reservations anyway, she canceled for a client dinner. That dinner, apparently, was with her ex, Evan, who, according to her, just wanted closure and a Caesar salad. Here's the early twist. My mom texted me a congratulations that night. "Proud of you for being the bigger person." I called her, confused. She said she'd run into Rachel's sister at the store, who'd said, "Rachel and Evan stayed friends. Mark's so secure about it." My sister-in-law had announced a story I didn't know I was in. Secure? I hadn't even been invited to the conversation. I promised myself I wouldn't spiral. I'm a pretty rational guy, systems engineer, fix it by nature, the let's look at the logs type. So I looked at the logs. Not her phone, ours. Our joint card. A charge, boutique hotel bar, 2 martinis, late-night charcuterie, same evening as only dinner. I stared at the timestamp until the numbers blurred, then talked myself off the ledge. Maybe it was just drinks. Maybe they sat in the lobby because the restaurant was full. Maybe I'm reading tone into a receipt. When she got home near midnight, she smelled like peppery cologne and mint. Her lipstick was fresh, like she'd just reapplied in the car. She kissed my cheek. "You're acting weird," she said sweetly, and slid past me to plug in her phone face down. "Don't be insecure, babe." It was closure. I lay awake listening to the quiet and the soft tick of Pixel's collar, wondering at what point love starts to sound like a closing door. Sometimes the smallest sound is the loudest. At 2:11 a.m., her phone buzzed and lit the dark just long enough to show a preview from Laura. Work. "Same table next week? I can still taste you." My heart stuttered, then did the strangest thing. It stayed polite. I didn't slam a door. I didn't flip on a light. I just whispered to the ceiling. "Okay," like I'd opened the first page of a book I didn't want to read. I didn't confront her that night. I just lay there staring at the faint glow from her phone screen, the words looping in my head. "Same table next week? I can still taste you." I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation, a wrong number, a prank, a text meant for someone else. Anything but what it so obviously was. But when she rolled over in her sleep, I caught a glimpse of her face. Peaceful, lips curved faintly like she was dreaming of something good. I used to find that smile comforting. That night, it felt like mockery. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. I kissed her cheek before work, same as always. She smiled back, the perfect picture of domestic bliss, and said, "You're sweet when you're not paranoid." I spent half the day in a fog, barely able to focus on anything at work. At lunch, I finally gave in and texted her. "Hope your day's going well. Love you." It wasn't love that made me send it. It was a test. Her reply came fast. "Busy but good red heart lunch meeting with Laura." I stared at that little heart emoji for a long time. Laura, the same name in the message from last night. She didn't even bother to change her code name. That evening, when she came home, I played my role. I made dinner, asked about her day. She complained about her boss, said Laura talked too much, and scrolled through her phone mid-story. The performance was flawless. But after she went to bed, I decided to stop being the polite fool. I connected her phone to our shared laptop. She'd synced it months ago and probably forgot. Every text between her and Laura, work, popped up instantly. It wasn't work. It wasn't even close. There were weeks of messages. Flirty ones, explicit ones, a running joke about our secret meetings. Photos, her reflection in a hotel mirror, a man's hand on her thigh. Then one message that hit harder than any of them. He still has no idea. Poor guy's too nice to even suspect. I sat there for almost an hour, staring at the screen, trying to reconcile the woman I'd married with the stranger in those texts. This was the same Rachel who cried when I forgot her birthday once, who swore she'd never lie to me, who'd once said, "You make me feel safe." Around midnight, I closed the laptop and walked into the bedroom. She was asleep again, curled under the blanket, phone on the nightstand. For a second, I thought about shaking her awake, demanding the truth right then. But what would I even say? How long? How many times? Why wasn't I enough? Instead, I whispered, "I know," and watched her shift slightly, murmuring something in her sleep. Maybe a name. When I finally closed my eyes, I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me break. If she wanted to play this game, I'd play it better. I'd find out everything. Quietly. Completely. Then I'd decide exactly how to end it, and make sure she never saw it coming. For 3 days, I acted like the world hadn't tilted. I kissed her good morning, made coffee, joked about bills, even fixed the dripping faucet she'd been nagging me about. Meanwhile, I was studying her like a stranger under interrogation. She moved through our house with confidence, humming while getting dressed, scrolling her phone with that sly half-smile that used to look like affection. Once you've seen proof, every little habit changes meaning. I could almost admire how easy she made it look. On Thursday evening she said, "Dinner with clients again. Don't wait up." "Laura?" I asked lightly. She looked up from the mirror, mascara wand mid-stroke. "Yeah, she'll be there." "Why?" I smiled, just making sure I'm not imagining her. She turned back to the mirror, smirking. "You are such a jealous guy sometimes." That was the moment I realized she didn't just cheat. She enjoyed how far she could push me. After she left, I called her sister, Emma. We'd always been on good terms. I told her I was worried, that Rachel seemed distant. There was a long pause before Emma sighed. "Mark, I didn't want to get involved." "Then don't protect her. Just tell me the truth." Another pause. Then softly, "It's been going on for a while. She told Mom it was harmless. She said you were boring lately." "I'm sorry." Boring. That word stung more than any insult. I'd spent years trying to be the stable one, the safe place she could land. She'd turned that into something to mock. I thanked Emma, hung up, and started digging deeper. Phone records, bank statements, GPS history, all the little footprints cheaters forget they leave. Friday afternoon, I found her hotel receipts. Same boutique, place every week, paid for on her personal card. There was one dated tonight. I didn't storm over there. I'm not the dramatic type. Instead, I drove downtown, parked across from the hotel, and waited. At 9:14 p.m, she walked out. Same dress she'd worn on our anniversary, hair done, laughing at something the man beside her said, her ex, Evan. He put his hand on her back as they crossed the street. She didn't flinch away. I took one photo. Just one. She didn't see me when she got home an hour later. She came in humming, heels clicking softly, perfume filling the hall. I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open. "Fun dinner?" I asked. She froze. "What are you doing up?" "Couldn't sleep." I turned the laptop around. The photo of her and Evan glowed on the screen. Her face went through every stage, shock, panic, calculation, before settling into defiance. "You followed me? That's insane." "Not as insane as sleeping with someone else and calling it dinner." "It was dinner," she shouted. "You don't trust me because you're paranoid." Then explain the hotel receipts. She hesitated just long enough to confirm everything. Then came the tears. "Okay, fine. It wasn't just dinner. But it didn't mean anything, Mark. You've been distant, and he just listened." That line again. He listened. I stood up slowly. So that's what I was missing? Ears. She dropped to her knees, sobbing, reaching for my hand. "Please, Mark, it was a mistake. I'll end it. I love you." I looked down at her, mascara streaked, shaking. The image of her laughing with him outside that hotel was still fresh. "I'm sure you do," I said quietly. "You just love yourself more." Then I walked out. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just the sound of her crying fading behind me. The same sound I'd once thought meant she cared. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. My mom opened the door before I could even knock. I must have looked like hell because she didn't ask a thing, just pulled me into a hug and said softly, "She did something, didn't she?" I nodded. "Yeah, she did." My dad was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee steaming beside him. He listened while I told them everything. The text messages, the hotel receipts, the lies, the photo. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he took a slow sip, set the mug down, and said, "Son, you can't build peace with someone who thrives on chaos." My mom's eyes were glossy. "You gave her everything, Mark. And she still went looking for drama." I didn't want pity, but hearing it from them made the fog in my head start to clear. For the first time since finding out, I wasn't questioning myself. Later that day, Rachel called 6 times. I didn't answer. Then came a text. "Please come home. We need to talk." I told my mom, and she says we can work through this if you stop overreacting. Overreacting. That word almost made me laugh. By evening, her mother called too. "Mark, I just heard. Don't make any rash decisions. Rachel's upset, but you two have built a life together. Every marriage has bumps." "Cheating isn't a bump," I said. "It's a demolition. You men are all the same," she snapped. "Always so dramatic when a woman slips once." "Once," I said. "You might want to ask her how many dinners she's had." Silence. Then a muttered, "You're cruel," before she hung up. I didn't sleep that night. My phone buzzed every hour, messages from Rachel alternating between apologies and accusations. "I made a mistake. You're destroying our marriage. You weren't there for me. Please, let's fix this." By morning, my mom was packing a small duffel bag. "You're staying here for a bit," she said. "Let her sit in her own mess." That afternoon, Rachel showed up at my parents' house. She looked wrecked, eyes red, hair messy, wearing my hoodie like a costume. She started crying the moment I stepped outside. "Mark, please, don't do this." "I ended it. I swear." "You ended it because you got caught," I said calmly. She dropped to her knees on the porch, the same way she had in the kitchen, hands clasped like a bad play. "I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Please, just give me a chance." My mom came to the door behind me. "Get off my porch," she said sharply. "You don't get to beg here." Rachel looked up, shocked. "You don't even know what he's done." My mom crossed her arms. "He trusted you. That's all I need to know." Rachel started to cry harder. "I love him," I finally said. "Then why did you treat me like I was disposable?" No answer, just sobbing. Eventually, she stood, wiped her face, and said bitterly, "You'll regret this." When she drove away, tires squealing, my dad looked at me and said, "That wasn't love leaving, son. That was poison draining out." For the first time since this nightmare started, I almost believed him. But deep down, I also knew something Rachel didn't. I wasn't done. I was calm, but I wasn't finished. Because forgiveness might be divine, but revenge, the quiet kind, is cleansing. For the next week, I didn't speak to Rachel. I didn't text her, didn't check her social media. I wanted her to think I'd disappeared. While she was spinning in panic, calling everyone she knew, I was putting things in motion. I started by meeting with a lawyer. I laid out everything: the affair, the proof, the texts, the hotel receipts. He nodded, professional but quietly impressed by how organized I was. "You've done your homework," he said. "If she tries to play the victim, we'll make sure the truth sticks." "Good," I said, because she's not used to consequences. Next, I changed the locks on the house. Then, using our shared bank statements, I closed the joint account and moved my half to a separate one. The lawyer said to do it before she drained it. Apparently, cheating spouses have a habit of compensation withdrawals. 3 days later, she showed up again, pounding on the door. I watched her through the peephole for a long moment before opening it just a crack. "Mark, what is this?" she snapped, eyes darting. "My key doesn't work, and the card declined when I tried to buy groceries." I leaned on the doorframe, calm as ever. Guest dinner with Evan didn't come with a rewards program. Her mouth fell open. "You can't just cut me off like that." "Actually," I said, "I can. It's called a boundary. You should try it sometime." She glared, trembling between fury and desperation. "I'll ruin you," she spat. "You think people will side with you? They'll call you bitter. Crazy. Then I guess I'll let the screenshot speak for me." I pulled out my phone and showed her the album, labeled Dinner with Evan and Other Fairy Tales. Her face drained. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I smiled. "You're right. I wouldn't. Because unlike you, I don't enjoy humiliating people. I just make sure they can't hurt me again." She went silent, jaw tight, then dropped to her knees again. The same act, but this time it felt rehearsed. "Mark, please, don't end it like this. I can't lose everything." I'll fix it, I swear. You already lost everything, I said quietly. You just didn't notice when it happened. She left crying, muttering something about my mother turning me against her. But the truth was, no one had turned me. She did that all by herself. Later that night, I got a call from her father. He sounded tired, embarrassed. Son, he said, I don't know what she was thinking. Her mom keeps defending her, but I'm done. You did right. She needs to grow up. It was strange hearing that from him. The man who'd once told me Rachel was a handful, but loyal. I thanked him, hung up, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night. When I woke up the next morning, I brewed coffee and sat on the porch watching the sunrise. The world was quiet again, too quiet. But this time, it wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of my life clearing its throat before speaking again. I'd handled the betrayal, the lies, the chaos. Now it was time to handle the next phase, rebuilding. And if I was being honest, the idea of living for myself again felt like revenge enough. After that last confrontation, things got loud for a while, just not in my house. Rachel went nuclear. I heard from friends that she was telling everyone I'd emotionally abandoned her, that she'd made a mistake, but he wouldn't forgive me because his mom hates women. Classic. When people didn't buy it, she turned the volume up, posting vague quotes online. Some people love control more than they love truth. Meanwhile, I kept quiet. I didn't delete her posts or call her out publicly. I just let her talk. The silence drove her crazy, which, to be honest, was its own kind of justice. 2 weeks later, she showed up again, this time with her mom in tow. They stood on the porch like a mismatched PR team. Her mother started first. Mark, this is getting ridiculous. You're humiliating her by ignoring her. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice level. Rachel managed that part herself. Rachel tried to take my hand. Please, just let me inside. We can talk like adults. You had your chance to talk, I said. Now we'll let the lawyers do it. Her mom scoffed. You're throwing away a marriage over one mistake? One. I raised an eyebrow. Would you like to see the calendar, or just the highlight reel? Her mother turned red. You always were smug. Funny, I said. Your daughter said the same thing to her boyfriend. That was it. They left, her mother fuming, Rachel sobbing into her hands. The tires squealed all the way down the street. That evening, my dad called to check in. Heard you had visitors, he said. Yeah, I replied, sipping my coffee. They left faster than they arrived. He chuckled. Good. You're learning. The next few weeks were quieter. The lawyer finalized everything faster than expected. Rachel got her share of the furniture and her car. I got the house, the cat, and my peace. But there was one last surprise. Emma, her sister, the only one who hadn't blamed me, called one evening. I thought you should know, she said hesitantly. Rachel moved in with Evan. I didn't even flinch. I figured that would happen. She's saying he's different now, Emma added softly. Sure, I said. Different hotel, same story. She sighed. You know, she's miserable. You'd think getting what she wanted would make her happy. It never does, I said. Because people like her don't want love. They want attention. And those two things don't last together. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, watching Pixel chase dust in the sunlight. For the first time, I wasn't angry. Not even sad. Just finished. That night, I packed a small bag, grabbed my camera, and booked a trip to Oregon, the coast, where the ocean crashes against cliffs and drowns out every thought. I wasn't running anymore. I was resetting. Rachel could have her stories, her mistakes, her endless drama. Me? I had my peace, a camera, and the sound of waves waiting to wash the last of her from my memory. The Oregon coast looked exactly like I remembered from childhood, wild, gray, and beautiful in that way only quiet places can be. The first morning there, I stood barefoot in the cold sand with a cup of gas station coffee and watched the tide roll in. Each wave sounded like a heartbeat, steady and sure. I hadn't realized how long I'd lived braced for noise, the ping of her phone, the tension before an argument, the way she'd sigh when I spoke. Here, there was only wind and water. I rented a small cottage just off the beach. No Wi-Fi, no TV, no distractions. I unpacked my camera and started walking, taking photos of anything that caught my eye. Driftwood tangled like sculptures, rusted fishing boats, gulls frozen mid-flight. The act of framing things, deciding what stayed in the shot and what didn't, felt like therapy. By the third day, The restlessness started to fade. I slept through the night for the first time in months. I cooked simple food, read books I bought years ago and never opened. I was finally learning how to be alone without feeling lonely. Then, one afternoon, I met Jenna. She was a local artist who ran a small gallery in town. We got to talking because I was photographing her dog sleeping in the sun outside her shop. She laughed when she caught me. You know you're supposed to ask permission before turning someone's dog into art, right? We ended up having coffee at a nearby cafe. Nothing romantic, just conversation. She told me she'd left a messy relationship 2 years ago and escaped here to start over. When I mentioned my divorce, she didn't look at me with pity, just understanding. You seem calmer than most people who've been through that, she said. Maybe I'm just tired, I replied. She smiled. Tired's a start. Peace comes next. That line stuck with me. Over the next week, we ran into each other a few more times. At the pier, the cafe, the beach trail. She had a way of making silence feel comfortable. One evening, we watched the sunset together without saying a word. No expectations. No stories. Just light fading over the water. When I drove home a week later, I realized something had shifted. I didn't feel haunted anymore. Rachel's face, her voice, even the anger, they were fading like old photographs left in the sun. Back at home, I hung a few of my best shots from the trip on the wall. My favorite was of the horizon just after dusk, half light, half shadow. I titled it Starting Over. That night, I sat on the porch, pixel curled at my feet, and thought about what Jenna had said. Tired first, then peace. I wasn't quite there yet, but I was close. And for the first time, close was enough. Coming back to my city felt surreal. The skyline was the same, the streets hadn't moved, but somehow everything looked cleaner, like someone had turned down the noise in my head. I drove past places Rachel and I used to go. The Thai place where we celebrated our first anniversary, the park where she said she loved me for the first time. I didn't feel that stabbing twist anymore. Just recognition. Those memories had lost their teeth. When I pulled into the driveway, Pixel was sitting in the window, tail twitching like she'd been guarding the place for me. I sat in the car for a while, watching the porch light flicker, realizing this was the first time the house felt like mine. Inside, I found a single envelope pushed through the mail slot. No return address, but the handwriting was hers. Mark, I heard you went away. I'm glad. I hope you find peace. I know you'll never believe this, but I'm sorry. I ruined something good because I thought I deserved more. Evan left, by the way. I think I finally understand what you meant when you said I love chaos. You were right. I read it twice, then tore it up and dropped it in the trash. Not out of anger, just finality. That chapter was done. The next few weeks passed easily. Work felt lighter. My parents came over for dinner one weekend, and my mom laughed for the first time in months. You look alive again, she said, squeezing my hand. Dad grinned. You've got that calm look, son. The one people get when they stop explaining themselves. That hit deep. I used to explain everything. To Rachel, to her family, to myself. Now I just existed. It was enough. A few days later, Jenna texted me a photo of one of my prints hanging in her gallery with a caption. See? Told you people would like your eye. I smiled at the message longer than I should have. We started talking regularly after that. About art, about life, sometimes about nothing. No flirting, no pressure. Just two people who'd both been cracked open by the same kind of hurt and decided to build something steady from the pieces. One Friday, she called and said, "There's a weekend art fair in town. You should come sell your prints." I don't think people want pictures of seagulls and docks. I laughed. They don't, she said. They want the piece behind them. So I went. My little table was awkward and uneven, but people stopped, asked questions, bought a few prints. For the first time in a long time, I was part of something that wasn't built on lies. That evening, after the fair closed, Jenna and I walked by the river, and she said quietly, "You ever think you had to lose everything to finally see yourself?" I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "and I think I finally like the view." That night, when I got home, I stood in the kitchen looking at my hands, the same ones that used to shake while holding a phone full of proof, and thought, these hands build now. They don't beg. And for the first time, the silence in the house wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. 6 months passed like water smoothing stone. Life had rhythm again. Coffee in the morning with sunlight spilling through the window, late runs through the park, small projects around the house that had waited too long. The quiet didn't ache anymore. It hummed. Jenna and I kept in touch. Nothing rushed, no dramatic declarations. We texted about weather, photography, and the absurd things people said at the gallery. One weekend, she drove into the city for a local art walk. She called and said, "I'm here. Want to grab lunch?" We met at a cafe near the river. Seeing her there, simple jeans, camera slung across her shoulder, easy smile, was like seeing calm in human form. Conversation flowed the way it never had with Rachel. No competition, no performance, no need to impress. When she laughed, it wasn't the sharp, nervous laugh of someone hiding something. It was just real. Over lunch, she asked, "Do you ever think about her?" I paused. Not in the way I used to. She's more like a scar now. Sometimes it itches when the weather changes, but it doesn't hurt. Jenna nodded. That's healing, you know. Not forgetting. Just not bleeding anymore. After she left that weekend, I realized I wasn't holding my breath waiting for the next betrayal. That part of me, the man who second-guessed, who checked phones, who built trust out of hope instead of honesty, was gone. A few weeks later, my mom hosted a small family dinner. It was the first time I'd been around everyone since the divorce finalized. There were jokes, laughter, normal conversation. Midway through dessert, my mom said, "You know, Mark, your dad and I were talking. You seem more like yourself again. Or maybe just more." "I think I'm just not pretending anymore," I said. Dad chuckled. "Pretending's exhausting. Welcome back to real life." That night, driving home, I realized how lucky I was. Not because of what I'd lost, but because of what I'd learned. There's freedom in seeing people clearly, even if it hurts at first. When I pulled into the driveway, Pixel met me at the door, purring loud enough to drown out every echo of the past. I picked her up, looked around my little home, and thought about how close I'd come to losing it all chasing a lie dressed up as love. The next morning, I woke up early, brewed coffee, and opened a fresh folder on my laptop titled New Horizons. Inside were photos from my trip, the art fair, and a few candid shots I'd taken of Jenna when she wasn't looking. For once, I wasn't cataloging proof of someone's betrayal. I was building evidence of my own rebirth. That's when I realized it. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the middle of the good part. A year to the day since everything fell apart. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat on the porch watching the sunrise creep across the neighborhood. It hit me how different this same view looked now. The street hadn't changed. The house hadn't either. But I had. The past year had stripped me down to something honest. No illusions, no pretending. The man who used to over-apologize and over-explain was gone. What remained was simple: peace, purpose, and a quiet gratitude for the lessons that came wrapped in pain. I never heard from Rachel again. Her sister, Emma, said she'd moved to another state, started some new job. I didn't ask for details. I didn't wish her well or ill. I just wished her gone. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about freeing the other person. It's about freeing yourself from replaying the same scene forever. My photography had taken off in small ways. I sold prints online and even got a few displayed in local coffee shops. One of them, a picture of the Oregon coast, was titled Reclaiming Quiet. It became my bestseller. People said it made them feel calm, and every time I heard that, I smiled a little. Jenna and I kept crossing paths. Not in the fairy tale way. No fireworks or grand confessions. Just small, steady things. A weekend hike. Helping her hang new paintings in the gallery. Long talks about how people rebuild themselves after being broken. She became a mirror, not of who I'd been, but of who I was becoming. One evening, she asked, "If you could go back and stop her from cheating, would you?" I thought about it. "No," I said, "because then I'd still be the man who needed her to define me. I had to lose her to find out who I really was." She smiled. "Then you're finally free." That night, I walked home under a sky full of stars. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. For the first time in years, I felt unafraid of whatever came next. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: being a good man doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. You can love deeply and still walk away. You can be kind and still demand respect. And no matter how dark betrayal feels, there's always a version of you waiting on the other side. Stronger, calmer, whole. So here's my advice to anyone who's been where I was. Stop chasing explanations from people who thrive on confusion. Stop saving those who set fires and call it warmth. Save yourself instead. Because one day, you'll wake up to a quiet morning, take a breath, and realize the only thing you ever needed to hear was the sound of your own peace. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up